Sorry for the interruption. The presentation crashed and I had to reboot the machine for memory. So I just reopened it and sharing it. Is my screen visible to all?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all again, once again, and I apologize for the interruptions and in PC due to a presentation crash in the last moment. Not usually happens. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present my small learnings in the international seminar organized by MSGC College. And the today's subject, what I'm going to talk is in the Vijayanagara and the Nayakas cultures. Predominantly, the focus is on how the artwork and the granite and the sculptures proceeded from earlier times, and then how it attained into Vijayanagara period, and what was the progression, and how we changed so many things, how the political structure in Vijayanagara dynasty made this happen in doing in multiple things in terms of temple and in terms of sculptures. So most of the content is based on what I have understood from various sources and books like George Mitchell's book on architecture of South India and other related books, and of course Google Endeavor for related content and pictures, and Wikipedia Pujari primarily for the purpose of the picture and the references it gives in terms of detail. And instead of relying on the Wikipedia content as it is very useful to go into the references and do it. And a lot of blogs like Kevin Standage and others who are useful to give excellent pictures, and some more pictures by Kongala and others from IITM. And also pronouns to my guru, Professor Swaminathan, who did the initial presentation and pushed to present it for me internally. And then this is a revision and a detailed version which I am attempting in public forums. So here, the objective is to look for progression of sculptures and art and architecture in South India. When I see it from the early times in Chalukyas in the 4th, 5th, 6th centuries, this was how it was looking like a grand 12 feet kind of a structure of Nataraja, but that was very complex and beautiful for a period of that time. But from there, how over a period of 10 centuries, how the art and architecture has progressed from this to a sculpture. Just half size of the Ganapati. This is the size of the sculpture, and this is the details that is being given in that sculpture. Tirukurukudi near Kanyakumari. This is a later Nayaka period sculpture. It is a wonderful temple where it is well known for its miniatures work. How we are just revisiting a brief path of how we progressed from here to the changes and the technology which enabled them to go and play frequently with sharper images and excellent iconographical details in the hardest stone that is available, granite. We start with we start our the story with Chalukyas who were there from 6th century to greater part of 9th, 7th, 8th centuries, and this is so they were one of the earlier innovators of the sculptures of the Brahminic theme. So their Badami caves and how they expanded and how they visualized the various panels in the Badami caves of the Brahminic theme was a very good trendsetters in the south for this. And then, even though the earlier art were there, it was not so beautiful and aesthetic and the body proportion. This is one of the first well-known depictions of sculptures where the form and features are coming into excellent play. Not only the entrances, the side beautiful panels and other things, even in the roof of the caves, they had fantastic things. In particular, the Badami cave numbers 1, 2, 3 are a delight to watch, and you need to literally lie down and enjoy the show on the top. Imagine how difficult it is to do the carving in the rooftop and how things are handled there. Then comes the artwork in the roof. Even, this continued even in the temples. Unlike the other temples, the Chalukyas went into a great height. One of the best features of them is the Surya temple in the Patadakal, Virupaksha temple. When you enter on the top, on the Mukhamandapa, when you see this, this is one of the fantastic sculptures in detail, which talks about a very great, fine craftsmanship par excellence. And then their sculptures were life size and very realistic with the relevant ornaments and such a beautiful thing as though they are having real life. That is one of the the characteristics of Chalukyas. And a lot of panel uh, sculptures and icons around the entire prakaram or outer wall of the temple. Very good examples, and the way they have visualized the same iconography, they have twisted it in so many different ways and do it. Normally, Ravana is depicted on the face forward straight one, but it is not a practical way of lifting it. Only weightlifters in the public show lift like that. But in a practical way, people turn and face it towards the weight and then lift it with the body bending backwards. So this is the practical pose which they have applied here and then presented in a different way. And if you see many of the features in this particular segment, the way it is explained, the details is very practical and differs in a wide variety from the normal iconography present in these days. So Chalukyas are a class apart in terms of this one. The next one is Pallavas. So even though they are almost at the same time, the art and other transitions happens slightly in later period in Pallavas, but their sculptures have beautiful body language, uh, which cannot be seen anywhere else in the South India, even till now. The way the sculptures are done, very dynamic and very fantastic structures. The way the Vishnu has a comedian with his Vahana, Garuda, or Shiva with his Vahana, Nandi. it is something which you cannot see in any of the later day sculptures, Cholas or even Vijayanagara. They had very, very minimal ornamentation, but very realistic, lean, and very light, like modern day heroes. And they excelled in monolithic sculptures. Where Vijayanagara were having monolithic sculptures, here they excelled also in bas reliefs. And Arjuna Parans is a very classic example. And then other characteristics of Pallavas is that they were doing a lot of uh, panel stories, which abound in their temples, right from Mahabalipuram, Kanchipuram, and all the way to other centers. In particular, this is one of the classic um, panels of Pallava, where the body language of victory from the Mahishasuramartini and the body language of the vanquished, and he has lost it. The body language shows it. Such a beautiful composition is one of the hallmarks of Pallavas, where they have used the space to the maximum. The other interesting activity and then the style is the Dwarapalakas. Nowhere else you can see such a stylish Dwarapalakas. Even in the three-quarter pose, they excel in the way they stand, and uh, and they are stylish, and then they are not like your local gundas. They are like a princess or a royal charm that has got like your modern day heroes. And then they also created a style of having the central panel and then the surrounding story around the panel as a one full-fledged story which covers all the aspects. There is one of the hallmarks which was tried out extensively in Kailasanath temple, and that is also one great monument. And this style was later also followed by Cholas to a certain extent in their grand temples. After Pallavas and during the same period, Pandyas were also ruling in South India. But the challenge for them is most of the early Pandya work from the 7th, 6th century up to 8th century is very, very small and then not identifiable, modifiable. Much of the work has been reworked or restructured by later Cholas and Vijayanagara, and it is very difficult to identify and attribute original Pandya work. But some of them are there and then they are excellent, like the lower Trichy Rockford caves, where a series of gods are depicted in detail, Surya and then Brahma, Ganapati. That shows fantastic maturity and proportions and the right amount of detailing, though a little bulky. Their sculptures followed the same design of lesser ornament and simple ornament and some more detail to the paneling. Their masterpiece and their out of the ordinary kind of structure is trying to attempt what the Rashtrakutas and Pallavas did, monolithic temple. They did one in Kadugumalai, which is near south, near Tirunelveli. They did a similar rocket temple of the same design, but somehow around the 8th century, halfway it was stopped. Only from Shikara all the way up to the top of the temple is carved. The left is the rest of the temple is unfinished. But what is completed is fantastic in terms of composition, detail, the kind of iconography and other things, which is out of the ordinary. They didn't focus only on Brahminical. They also had a lot of Jaina sculptures. And then it boasts one of the largest collection of Jaina sculptures in the same Tirumala Kadagumalai temple. And then there is in Tiruparankundram near Madurai, there is a beautiful carving where they have converted the earlier Jaina temple into a Shiva temple with a beautiful Nataraja and other details are mentioned. This gives the flavor of Pandyas. They have not been consistent, and we have not seen very beautiful lineage of development of sculptures like how Pallavas did mature in this from the early days up to Rajasimha period. And they also followed it with the Cholas. Here, suddenly there are some sparks, some inspirations, and then it stops at that point. Sculptures who could have done this could have continued and could have done a lot of other temples or sculptures that is missing. That is a mystery of Pandyas. Now, after Pandyas, around 9th century, the Chola became the dominant force. And then initially they continued the lingering Pallava grace in early Cholas, Paradaka Chola, Aditya, and others. And then this Kalari Murti in Mover Temple in Kodumbadur is an excellent example of grace, ratio, and other things like Pallava, lean, and then grace, body language perfect. And they also excelled in miniatures. This is the actual size of the miniature, where it is 1 finger by 1 finger or around 3-4 centimeters, maximum 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters area. In that, they have sculptured an entire series of Ramayana panels and Mahabharata panels all around the temple in the Kantam portion of the Adhisthana Pattika. So that is another way of experimentation where Pulamangai was an unique experimentation in Chola sculptures. So life-size sculptures and then miniatures and then beautiful body language sculptures in a later period is one of the Gajantika where the way the body is twisted and how it is dancing. It's a very dynamic pose, and see Parvati moving away upright and pushing and covering the sun. And this is something which is Chola hallmark. The other thing is grand sculptures with beautiful or fierce expressions. And it is difficult. This is a big sculpture which is around 20 feet. This is in Gangakonda Chodapuram. And also there is one similar large statue of Nataraja. The smile of the Nataraja and the pose body language is something seen to be lingered, even though it is not having the grace of Pallavas, but to handle these ratios on a sheer size, 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet, is an achievement by itself, and that too in granite. Next, in addition to having very simple sculptures, they are also known for their gigantic and fierce Dwarapalakas. This is an Dwarapalaka, which is on the outer Gobram of Tanjavur Big Temple. This is one of the largest Dwarapalakas available in India. Here, the Dwarapalaka itself is big, but again, they convey the meaning of hugeness. If you see the image here, basically a snake is swallowing an elephant, and this elephant, the snake is coiled, and this is being put under the thumb of the Dwarapalaka. This is just to interpolate the size 1,000 times, so that just by projection and by relative comparison of sizing, they're projecting the hugeness. This is something unique in depiction in terms of sculptures and conveying grandness. And again, in terms of bas relief, this is one of the largest. Not many people would have seen this. This is one of the largest bas reliefs atop Vimana. If you see the Hoysalas, they have the Sukanasi, the front projection in the Vimana. Here, in the front projection, instead of a Sukanasi, they got a huge image of a Kailasa where Shiva, Parvati, and this is like a group family photograph. All the deities are available as though they are living in Kailasa. This is in the third, fourth, fifth floor. It occupies 3 floor site in the big temple, and it is visible from a distance because if you get close, it will be covered by the hugeness of the temple. This is something which they also achieved. So if you see Chola, they tried engineering in sculptures. They did some elegant work. They did some pillar-related miniature sculptures. And the medallion work in their ornamented pillars are something to be mentioned, particularly in Dharasuram. From Cholas, we are moving over to the next Hoysalas from the 11th to 12th centuries. Here, their operation is from Karnataka, but they're using predominantly soapstone, which is abundantly available there. So the advantage of soapstone was that when it is freshly minted, it is easy to sculpture and then very malleable, and you can get very fine work. And then slowly, once the water dries out, it hardens, and it is very convenient. Like heating a beeswax or a metal and then shipping, it's very easy to do it. So they went they freaked out, almost freaked out, like in terms of ornamentation, if compared to any of the previous guys, where he used to have only one ornament. Now the entire dress is an ornament, unlike the current day Kerala braids, where they wear jewelry all the way up to the knee. These are covered fully with embellishment. See the embellishment for the bow, the chanka, and chakra, and even for the other areas. So this is possible primarily because of soapstone, and then people are willing to go the extra mile for the ornamentation. And their temple walls are filled with the friezes of animals in the logical sequence. That way, in a logical sequence, from the heaviest elephant, and then horses, and then warrior scenes, and then yadis, and then finally hamsas, and then the human figures. So this standard frieze of 6 to 7 levels is one of the beautiful portions, and in many of this we see extensive Mahabharata and Ramayana scenery beautifully depicted in detail here. The other fantastic stuff is the bracket figures, where in all pillars on the side, the Madanika pillars of Madanika statues are etched in detail with very, very fine beauty, and no two in a similar portion. That is another hallmark. Then the next one is when you go to the Rangamandapa, if you look up, you see this Bhuvaneshwari, which is the ornamental dome which is a separate piece done inverted and then finally put on top of the mandapa. That is done like a banana flower with so many designs and so many intricate design that this is a separate trend which was done, and we can see this trend predominantly in the Hoysalas and in Rajasthani temples. The other interesting portion of Hoysalas is in terms of the pillars. Since they are malleable, they were first ones to be known to use something equivalent to modern day lathes in preparing their pillars, and then in a rotary one, and we have seen some of the remnants of the lathe like um, activities, and then shafts with holes and other things, and then even with the lathe, which reduced their work to a great extent, they didn't stop. So they took it to the next level. By doing this lathing work, they created fantastic circular and symmetrical forms. Normally, others would have stopped there. So they started this as a base work and then created projections and badras and leaves on this, and then finally transformed this into this form where there is a fine vertical lining to the base. This one. So it is taken to the next level of three-dimensional sculptural pillars. So this is possible only in soapstone, and we can't do it in granite to a great extent. This is the unique signature of Hoysalas. The other one, when you talk about the Vimanas, normally the middle portion of the Vimana is called the Shala Shikara, the small Shala Shikara, where it is a rectangular piece of structure. This rectangular piece of temple normally was one piece, and then Cholas brought it into three-level projection, Bhadra, Ubhadra, like that. That is projected. Hoysalas took it to a great level of up to 10 levels of Bhadras, where you have continuous projection, and it looks like a totally different, like lotus floor, and then this leaf like motif. This is another hallmark in sculptures. Even though it is an architectural element, without sculpturing this cannot be done. So this is again Hoysalas, who have done an excellent development in terms of making the large work done in granite. They put it in different dimension with the same granite, and without going in for the granite and other things, by using the local stones, they went for the fineness, details, and variety in their temples. So with this context, when it comes to the next and the last known artistic and Brahminical artistic and the activities in the initially were doing in whatever way the Andhra and Karnataka were doing, but they shifted over to a totally different way. And then if you look at the Vijayanagara capital, you can see the reason. The Vijayanagara capital is a hilly area with abundant granite and lot of work, and then they have converted most of the hill areas into temples. Imagine if Pallavas would have stayed there for one century, they would have transformed that entire place into a totally different magic world. This is something which you can fantasize in history. What would have happened if Pallavas were ruling in Hampi? and what kind of an monuments we would have got from them. But they made very good use of the location, a lot of beautiful things. Cholas attempted large monuments, but to a certain level and the scale. Vijayanagara went into another speciality of monolithic icons and chariots. Some of them are there. That's a huge list, and then we can't cover it in this presentation. So some of the representative ones is the beautiful Yoga Narasimha statue and the other lingas that are available in Hampi, Lepakshi. There are so many examples abound. And the other one, monuments like chariots. This has been attempted earlier in mostly in Gujarat and in in Odisha in the Konark temple. To a certain extent, it was tried in Cholas where they had Rathakara temples, one in Melakadambur, which is like the entire temple is shaped like a proper Ratha with wheels and other things. Later, Cholas also did a lot of mandabas, the outside mandabas, which had the look of a chariot with wheels and the vahanas. But this is a standalone chariot which they tried it for their um, Garuda temples. And like this, there are in many places in the outer Garuda temple, wherever is there, from the Mandapa, if you see Tadipatri and then other areas, this has been extended from the regular Mandapa and the later period, a chariot like Mandapa has been built. This has been a standard hallmark of Vijayanagara. The other interesting thing is the pillars. The pillars no longer remained pillars. They expanded into a huge size. One, to give the width from the architectural perspective, so that instead of having the normal 10 feet path, now you have a 30 feet path open space available between two pillars. This is possible because of this extension and the load bearing capacity. But to support this, instead of a single one, slowly they did some composite return, and finally it landed in complete full-fledged figures in each of this. So technically, each pillar becomes a sculptural museum by itself. And again, in many of the earlier temples in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, where there were no prakarams, for security reason and to avoid future Muslim invasion and other things, grand prakaram walls. This is 20 feet height granite walls and other things were built around the temple. And in many of the temples, they have done the kind of work which Hoysalas did in the Bada portion of the temple, like in the temple first level prakara walls. They did it in the large scale in the prakaram outer walls throughout this. This is a huge work. It covers 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers kind of a perimeter. And there also they got a standard way of elephants, horses, people, and hamsas. The sequence is there. And again, it is interspersed by very frequent frequent display of Vijayanagara royal emblem. So that is another unique way of presenting sculptures during Vijayanagara period. Again, till now, particularly we don't know about Karnataka or Andhra. Maybe almost to a great extent, The kings who built their statues are always not visible. In very, very rare cases, we get very small statues, or sometimes we doubt whether it is a king or a saint or somebody else. There is no documentation. But come to Vijayanagara, the projection and marketing is very clear. And then we have very good plump figures of realistic rajas who enjoy their life, their fun, their food, and everything. It is visible in the punch and visible in the way the body and other things. And then not only there, their family, full family of several wives and other things, ministers, everybody is presented as sculptures. And also to avoid no confusion, there is inscriptional mention of who the king is. So that gives a fairly good idea of the character and the physique of Vijayanagara kings. That is one hallmark of Vijayanagara later period temples. And the pillars. Pillars with the patika and other things, they have become favorite place for Vijayanagara sculptures to play around. They got so many themes, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and then secular themes, and then birds, animals, uh, mythical beings, rishis. Everything is played around in excellent detail. One of the very, very interesting thing is the Melukote. When you go to Melukote, first book your Puliyodare because it gets over very fast, and then go into Salonarayana temple. And then once you finish the darshan, you come to the thousand pillar mandapa, which is on, I think it is on the north side. You can spend 2 hours, 2.5 hours there and looking in each and every pillar and the amount of detail it has got increases. So to give in a nutshell, this is what is the very interesting characters or variations of Vijayanagara from the earlier sculptures and how there's a way it has been progressed. So they're able to play around in granite, like how Hoysalas played in soapstone. To a great extent, they played around in granite in finer details. That is possible due to the advanced technology and the maturity and the skills they have evolved over a period in Tamil Nadu and in the Hampi region. So it extended into very fine architecture in granite. So they reached the pinnacle in granite in terms of very, very fine sculptures. Again, however, this trend was continued by their Nayakas, their generals, for another 150 years. And then they continued the same trend with the kind of sculptures they had. Again, in Tamil Nadu, in particular, there is a business community called Natakote Chettiars or Nagaratas. They base out of Karakudi near Madurai, and they are very rich Chettiars who do business all over Southeast Asia, even from the days of Cholas. So they, as a business community, have invested heavily in the 18th, 19th centuries pre-independence, and even now they are doing it. And then they had done a lot of renovation to the mandapas and temples in Tamil Nadu. And the kind of work they do with the modern tools and other things is phenomenal. And then they take it to the next level. But again, this is with modern, little modern tools and then advanced facilities. So this is the state. This is where the Vijayanagara took its pinnacle. Now we are taking a step back and then seeing how that is possible in a country like Vijayanagara, where they were doing uh, a different kind of a rule. So, and see how this is possible to nurture and restructure the devastation. So, before Vijayanagara came in, this entire country was in fragments with so many kings ruling bits and pieces. And the Mohammedan invasion from the Ganges heartland came in very frequently, and then it has destroyed most of the temples in this area, and particularly North India, almost everything is erased. And in South India, to a great extent, if you see any major temples in South India, we should thank Vijayanagara dynasty for recovering and restoring many of the temples and then protecting the further damage. So, if you see the objective, it was formed as a Hindu dynasty to protect against the incursion. To a great extent, if you see this, they did achieve. They blocked the Islamic group, the sultans, and then incursions from top on this one. But again, they did invasion into all Hindu countries down south, and from Hampi all the way down to Kanyakumari, they raised everything and then they owned in a different way. But the primary objective of pushing back was never achieved. So they stopped the sultanates here itself, and then they never pushed them beyond Godavari into the sun. So primarily, somewhere around Krishna was a core area, and after that, the holdings was keep on changing. So on one hand, it stopped the Mohammedans from invasion and then destroying many of the temples here, but the hold was precarious. Let us see how this dynasty was structured and how it contributed to a unique situation of temple building, revenue system, and a different kind of an art and architecture. Basically, unlike the other dynasties, Vijayanagara is a warrior-based dynasty where warriors grouped together and then formed their first dynasty. And the succession was by generals. Let us see one by one. The first Sangama dynasty was created by Harihara and Bukka, and then who were working under Veeraballala of Hoysala. And then they started, they were manning their initial fort in Hosadurga, and then later on, when Vijayanagara was established, it was turned as a capital and converted into an extensive stuff. So the key kings were Harihara, Bukka, and Harihara, who ruled for a long period and did some amount of stabilization. Devaraya I and Devaraya II, to a great extent, continued the work and expanded. And predominantly, their strength is their generals, where they have put it into various ones. And then the generals ruled the faraway regions of Tamilnadu, Andhra, Karnataka, and other things. So, to a certain extent, the generals were powerful. So the other character of Vijayanagara is that when one dynasty becomes weak and not very aggressive, its general who is powerful takes over. So Saruva Narasimha, who was the general under the earlier kings, revolted and then took over control, and he is formed the next Saluva dynasty. And he ruled for 5 years, and then his son followed Imadi Narasimha. But again, there is a threat forming by his number two general. So the second general, Nayaka, who was trained and then brought up by Saluva Narasimha, then he took over and then started the next Thuluva dynasty. But the core set of ministers, the structure and everything, to a great extent, it was followed. So he did for a short while, and after that, his first son ruled. And one of the greatest emperors of Vijayanagara is Krishna Devaraya. who did the thing. Primarily, his way of expansion was to have a lot of Brahmins and others who were well versed in management and others. They were put in as regional governors, and then they ruled. They were loyal to the central unit, and then they ruled the various far-flung regions of the country. And later on, it was continued by Rachudaraya to a great extent, and then uh, the son Sadasiva Ravaya was young. At the time, there is tumultuous issues in the hierarchy, and then his Krishnadevaraya's son-in-law Aliya Ramaraya, he took control and became a regent of Sadasiva since he was a young age. So over a period, slowly till his entire life, Ali Ramaraya was in control, and then he was ruling on behalf of Sadasiva till his death. And in the latest debacle in 1560s, in the war with the combined Bahmani sultans, he lost his life, and then the control moved over to his brother Venkadatri, Tirumala, and Sriranga. So they moved over from Hampi. It became a deserted place, and then they moved over to Penukonda, and from Penukonda they moved over to Chandragiri, which is on the foothills of Tirupati, and from there the next Aravidi dynasty and all the descendants of Aliya Ramaraja uh, ruled up. So again, the key kings were Venkata, who ruled for a long period, again without much thing, and then Ramadevaraya, who survived somehow for 12 years, and then Venkatatri for another 12 years, and slowly it went into oblivion. Even before this period, the generals under the regions have taken, many of them have declared independence when the debacle happened in the war with combined Bahmani sultans. So from that time, the generals did their own Nayaka independent kingdoms. So the challenge here is that the central kingdom is in a dry land where it get revenues from various wetlands around in Kaveri belt and in Tamrabarani belt in Tirunelveli and in Kerala and in fertile Karnataka ruled by a group, and then and then upper Karnataka by the Keladi group. So they were the predominant generals who controlled their local army. They collected the amount and gave around 30% of their revenue to the central unit. But again, like I said earlier, this was designed for a Hindu protectorate, but south-based kingdoms. So, so this is an unique character where, as we see, whenever a dynasty goes into disuse or not strong enough, the next in line, the general or somebody who is the strongest general, takes over and creates the next dynasty and then continue till his line becomes um, uh, not so aggressive and taken over by somebody else. So they were able to easily withstand with the same kind of an infrastructure and setup for 300 plus years on a consistent way. And then at the peak, they were ruling the entire South India up to a great extent. And this helped in rebuilding the Hindu temple sculptures and art to a great extent, and with their own brand of architecture and sculptures. If you see this, the work of Vijayanagara kings was continued even though they went up to 1630. The work was continued by the Nayaka families, three major Nayaka groups, way up to 1750 till Hyder Ali and Marathas took over, and then did the next level of fighting. So the one of the major branch was Madurai Nayakas. The other one was Tanjore Nayakas and Jinji Nayakas, who lost independence very early. The Kelide Nayakas continued all the way up to Hyderali. The same with Mysore Udayas. Mysore Udayas, the initial five ones in italics are under Vijayanagara, and later they become independent and they followed and they ruled in their own style. But the common structure, the design, or the methods were almost followed in the same way in all the Nayakas or the generals under them. So they also brought their own style of temple architecture, their own style of sculptures and designs in their own regions. So even though it was a single country, the culture, the art, and the architecture was grown in five or six different styles, depending on the local variation and the local pattern. Now let us see a little bit on the art and architecture part. First, let us see the temples and what kind of an architecture we have for this. So this was how it looked like the Krishna temple when it was seen in 1868 photograph. And ASA has done a fairly excellent job in restoring it to the current level of
I'm sorry,
cleanliness.
Mr. Babu, you'll have to conclude in 5 minutes or so.
Oh my God. Okay, I will rush in. Can you give me another 5 minutes? I will rush it in
5 minutes.
another 5 minutes. I will rush it in covering part. Okay, right. So if you see the type of temples and structures we have in early Vijayanagara temple, during the Harihara Bukka period, the temples were of the standard Nagara style, square, and other things. And then the same style was followed in the Sampike, Madhavaraya, Mallikarjuna, Sri Salem temples in Penukunta, and this was a style. Later on, during the late Saluvas and the Sangamas period, the earlier style of open mandabas and balconies, they were stopped, and then Hazara Rama temple is a good example for that. And then pilastered walls, kutas, round shikaras, or square shikaras from Tamil Nadu were imported with a huge wall. Then when it comes to the Tuluva period in the 15th, 16th century, the design from Tamil Nadu, like open mandapa, closed mandapas, grand prakaram walls, become the standard. And then most of the old temples got renovated with add-on features. And the sculpture started becoming very, very abundant in the Gopuram base and then also on the Twaras. So this style is very, 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 very clear in 1534 Tiruvenkaranatha temple, Kalagasti, Chintala Venkatramana temple, Veerabhadra temple, Lepakshi. All these were expanded in this style from the Tamil Nadu Dravida style. But the ratios are different. Tamil Nadu, the Gopurams are broader and then not so tall, but the same using the Kashyapa and other agamas, but they took a different ratio and made it lean and tall. There is a variation in Vijayanagara. And when it comes to Aravidu, there is a next level of, so the operation is from Chandragiri, the focus is more on Tirupati area like Govindaraja temple, Varadaraja temple, Jalaganteshwara for the Janji Nayaka, Sarangabani temple for Tanjavur Nayakas, Madurai Meenakshi temple for Nayakas, where all hallmark temples of Aravidu, where they expanded and then they structured it in like a temple city. Not only Brahminical temples, even Jain temples were built extensively and expanded extensively by Vijayanagara period. Some of the examples are Chandramukh Basadi, Front Hall, and the Gomateshwara temple in Karkala, and the front hall of the Modu Vidri Chandranatha temple, Basadi. So this is all some of the various things. Now coming to the sculptures, the Vijayanagara specialization is like I said earlier, their unique royal emblem containing the boar, the sword, the changa and chakra, and it says that this empire will last till the Surya and Chandra are there. So this is a very complex emblem, but this was predominantly displayed in many of these. And there, that propensity for large monolithic idols, and they introduced new iconography elements and excellent monolithic chariots, and the composite pillars turned into sculptural pieces. And sculptures in mandabas were excellent, and even though the body was not so plastic, but they had the right kind of ornaments, unlike the Hoysalas. And their friezes in outer prakara walls were something to mention. In terms of iconography, they were marketing and popularizing five major deities. Tirumala Venkateswara, very popular. Ahabalam Narasimha was very popular. And to a great extent, Varadaraja of Kanchipuram was very revered. Srirangam Ranganatha and Bandarpur Pittala from Maharashtra region was also revered to a great extent here. In addition, to move the dull spirits and include fighting spirit, they created new icons like Vyasaraja, created Veeranjaneya, Veerabhadra, Veera Narasimha, Bhadragali, all aggressive and fighting spirit. This is the predominant deities pushed in many of the iconography and prevalent in large temples. When you see monolithic temples, everybody is famous for this Yoga Narasimha Hampi temple. And then this is another Patala Linga in Hampi, one of the largest lingams. This is one of the famous puja here who, despite his very old age, he used to come every day and to do puja for his temple. Very recently, last year, he passed away. And then the grand Garuda chariot. This is a visualization by IITM Ramakrishna Kongarla on how it would have viewed when you complete with the actual Gopara available. Shikara available, I'm sorry. And then they excelled in monolithic in Nandis, their favorite. Even Tanjore Big Temple has got one. And this is the one in Lepakshi, which is the largest monolithic after Gomateshwara. And special mention should be done about in iconography about Vyasa Raja Anjaneya, who defined a different form of Anjaneya and then ensured that it is progressed and then installed all over India in his reach. And it has got some unique characteristics like the bell and then face forward, both the eyes view, and then Abhay Mutra, and then the Shankh Chakra. Like that, these are very common features which are very unique form of Vyasaraja Anjaneya, which we can see all over Tamil Nadu and in many places in Karnataka also. And royal images started appearing in gopurams and corridors in a grand way. This is Krishna Deva Raya in Chidambaram. And this is a very famous bronze with Krishna Deva Raya and concerts in Tirupati as you enter. And they were also very practical. They did some very real life practical images in mortar or in stone or with the colors. This is the Rameshwaram Sethupathi and this is the Madurai Tirumala Nayakar and this one. See the way the ponchos and the unwieldy dress and things. Still, they wanted to convey what is reality. This is another way of art. And friezes in Prakara. This is Hazara Rama friezes in Prakara and in walls. And this is something which they wanted to take it to a great level. And even in Tamil Nadu, in many temples, in the outer walls like Tiruvannamalai or in Devikapuram, this kind of friezes are available. And pillars. What were pillars which were expanded, now converted into full-fledged sculptures And in Tamil Nadu, in many of the places where the Dwajastamba is there, around Dwajastamba, in the all four corners, the pillars were adorned with the standard set of Radhi Manmada, Veerabhadra, Bhadragali, and then Arjuna and Kartavirya. This kind of combination sculptures were created by Vijayanagara, and that is their hallmark. And then they excelled in bronze. By look, you can say that this bronze is Chola period, but actually the plastic thing is missing, and expert evaluate this to be Vijayanagara period. And this is an final one interesting idol of Balakrishna, which was brought in from Udayagiri after defeating Gajapati kings, and then installed in the new Krishna temple, which Krishna Devaraya built in. It was there, and after the sack of Hampi, it was scattered around. And finally, this was brought in and then stationed at Madras Museum, and it is available in Chennai Museum now. So with this, I stop this presentation at this point. I have some more slides, but due to lack of time, I am stopping at this point of time. Thank you. And then if you need any other things, you can see the videos in my YouTube channel, or you can connect at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babu, for this nice journey into art and architecture over the period, starting from early period to Nayakas and all. It's a great. It was a interesting journey, encompassing all aspects of art and architecture of that period. The session is open for questions or suggestions, if any.
Pranam sir, my gurus and seniors, Krishnamurthy sir is there, Suresh sir is there, Vishwanath Rao sir is there, all pranams to all the senior gurus. And if I mentioned any wrong things, it is my mistake in understanding. But the gurus have taught me so many things and so many research and documentation. And even with so many years, we can still learn a lot of interesting things from you. Pranam sir.
Any suggestions from any corner?
Sir, any suggestions to improve it further? Few words.
Yes, please. Please unmute your mic and then speak.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Very clear.
Regarding the Ratha, right in front of the Vittala temple.
Yes.
It is like a small chamber.
Yes.
Actually, Agama text prescribe that the Vahana, that is called the Garuda Mantapa, it should always be closed because Garuda is a bird. Birds always actually live in nests, closed places. Yes, so that is why Garuda Mantapas are actually built like a small cella. Whereas Nandi Mantapa, Nandi is an open pavilion because you know how these cow sheds are built. It is well ventilated, open all round. That is why a Nandi Mantapa is built always open. So that is the difference. That is the reason for building a Garuda Mantapa closed like a small cell. So wherever you go, you get same thing.
The same logic. I remembered your talk on earlier 2 or 3 occasions where you have mentioned this also. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember that.
You can categorically state that because Agamas prescribe like that.
Okay.
Good. It was a good talk, a good survey. Good survey of Karnataka and Tamilnadu temples, right from Pallavas to the end of Vijayanagara style. It's good. Congratulations to you. Keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the blessings.
Yes, sir. Bhuvan sir, please conclude the session.
With the blessings of your gurus, it certainly was a very illuminating kind of talk, introducing from the Pallavas to the end of the Vijayanagara in the up to the Nayaka period. It was and it could have continued for more because it was such an interesting talk to listen to. But due to the time constraint, I think you deserve a lot of thanks, good wishes for future endeavor, and we would certainly like to hear more from you on a different aspect sometimes later. Thank you very much. Over to Professor Mishra for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is a privilege to present in front of all the August seniors and get the feedback and some amount of validation for my presentation. Definitely, I am really blessed for that. And again, talking about Vijayanagara architecture or sculptures, it is very challenging to convey everything in 1 hour. So I took a slightly different route on how it got convoluted into the pinnacle as a theme, rather than going into. Even if I talk for 2 hours, then anybody can say that you did not cover this, you did not cover that. That is such a vast subject by itself. So instead of doing it, I thought a different route of how it culminated and then what was the different ways in which the people were progressing. I thought that is a different flow. Hope it got validated by the audience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the,
Thank you.
For the
Thank
feedback.
you.
Any feedback from Somasekhar, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Bhuvan Vikram sir, for given time and share the session, and Mr. Sivasankar Babu given a nice talk for our audience. When time is available, I am arrange your next talk for this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Pranams to all the gurus.
So now next very important session, our chairperson, Professor MS Krishnamurthy sir, former professor and head ancient history and archaeology, University of Mysore. Eminent speaker, Professor V.H. Sonavane sir, former professor and director, Department of Ancient History and Archaeology, MS University, Vadodara, India. Welcome, Professor MS Krishnamurthy sir and Professor V.H. Sonavane sir. So, first, I will present the brief CV of Dr. MS Krishnamurthy sir, and then Professor Krishnamurthy sir introduce our